as well. Baylor has a new running backs coach, AJ Steward. He comes from Oregon State. 196 rushing yards a game, which was fourth in the Pac-12, which is pretty darn good. If they're just under 200 and they're fourth, you can see how much rushing was going on in that league, which is a pretty darn deep league this past season. He spent some time, 2 years on the staff with Jeff Grimes and one with Eric Mateos at BYU, so there's the connection. And again, another coaching hire that wasn't outside the tree, so to speak. That Baylor, I think Craig would like to continue to kind of hit the ground run, or not continue, but hit the ground running when it comes to this, because of this kind of upheaval of the roster and the coaching staff and everything that's happened in the last, 2 months, really.
Since Dave Aranda arrived, really, thinking about the coaching staff.
That's true. So, that maybe bring back in some people, or if you're bringing in new people, someone who's familiar with the wide zone, somebody who, they trust, and not maybe, an up-and-comer or someone that's there. They're trying to stay stable at that. One of the most consistent positions over the last 2 years has been running back, especially even this year, where didn't know really what it was going to be, and they got the most out of what they had.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a pretty good, little resume, and Oregon State was one of the more fun offenses to watch. I mean, he's like, here's the first thing that jumped out to me was, what are the odds that, the last couple of years, not this past season, but the last couple of years, he was coaching a guy named BJ Baylor, and then he's now Baylor's running backs coach. I mean, I know it's just a small little thing, but I mean, I just don't know what the odds of that would potentially be. But I know of BJ Baylor not because of the last name, but because he's from Texas, and he had a monster final season at Oregon State. If you look at his stats and what he was like his first 2-3 years, now granted his carries went way up his final year with the Beavers, and so that plays into it somewhat, but like his numbers across the board skyrocketed in that final year, and that was under Steward's coaching. When he arrived at Oregon State, I mean, he turned B.J. Baylor into a stud by the end of it, and then, look no further than who followed that up, and it's another Texas guy, and Damian Martinez, who had a fantastic year for Oregon State, and the Beavers overall. I mean, they had a terrific season, so he's coming from a winning program, a fun offense, an offense that could run the ball really well. And yeah, I was really impressed by how often I was looking at Damian Martinez in the weekly stats and just going, okay, got to make sure I make a note of him because of doing the Earl Campbell Award stuff and monitoring the players from Texas. So yeah, I mean, knowing what B.J. Baylor and Damian Martinez have done in the last couple of years, knowing they're both from Texas, that definitely, gave me some excitement or some optimism about this hire. But yeah, then you read deeper and there's the BYU connection, which I'm sure BYU fans feel like Baylor fans feel towards Tech. As far as like the coaching crossover, it's like, really, you're going to hire another former BYU guy? Really? At least this one's not on staff currently. But yeah, there is that connection, so that makes sense. I mean, yeah, you're not going to just go hire some random running backs coach who has no experience in the offense that you're running, so that you'd seem like that was a must, and so that box is checked as well. I don't know how he is as a recruiter. Be honest in that regard, I'm not sure how stellar of a recruiter he is, and that's something that Juice Johnson is pretty good at. I saw Juice Johnson was out taking pictures of all the high schools he was visiting for for Tech now at this point, but that was where he had some strong suits, and so I don't know how Steward fits in as far as that goes, but if he can go find another B.J. Baylor and go find another Damian Martinez, those guys weren't exactly 5 stars. He made that work A-okay. They put up big numbers, so I'd be fine with him finding the next Damian Martinez or B.J. Baylor rather than, Bijan or whatever, but you like to have Bijan, don't get me wrong. Just saying that how good or not he is in that regard, he's had or found talent, and it's worked, so I think based on, Oregon State's success and their running back success, it's a pretty interesting and good hire based on the responses I've seen from Beavers fans, whose degree of knowledge, probably varies, but still they all seem to be like, damn it. So I think that's always a positive sign, and we'll see. But yeah, another question was answered outside of that is, well, I guess one more note on him. What was very interesting about his hire was not only, the connections and the things that you typically would make sense with a hire, but the fact that he got a second title added onto that, and he is the assistant head coach. I find that very interesting because Juice Johnson left, and when he left, he picked up a couple of different titles. He went from just a running backs coach to what was it, wide receivers coach / passing game coordinator / associate or assistant head coach. And so, that was interesting to see that AJ Steward had a second title added on as far as the assistant or associate head coach. I thought that was definitely of note. So yeah, excited to welcome him in and get to know him a little bit and see, how they manage in the run game. He's got an interesting room with Richard Reese kind of headlining things. They got to figure out, where Tay McWilliams fits in, if he fits in at all at this point with his health. But beyond Richard Reese, you got Bryson Washington coming in, and you got Quaylon Jones coming back, and there's a couple of others, but he should have a pretty good little cupboard to start things off with. And then the special teams hire, they could have gone with somebody in house. They could have I guess hired an outright coordinator, although that seems like kind of a waste. You'd want a guy to double up with that. That's what Matt Pallage used to do. That's what Ronnie Wheat did last year with safeties and special teams. But they went out and got Tyler Hancock from Charlotte, and based on what I just heard a few minutes ago, he's not going to be like a 10th on the field assistant. So for the folks who are like, why would we do that? Why would we burn a recruiting spot? I don't think he's going to be a 10th assistant, so to speak. So curious to see, how all the chips fall. But that came down right after the other announcement. So they're set now, I believe. I mean, they needed a running backs coach after Johnson's departure last week. They needed a special teams coach. And now they've got, I think, all that they need. So it's onward and upward.
If you want to know how it's going to work, Ed Foley wasn't an on-field coach when he was brought in by Matt Rule, and he was the special teams guy. So he wasn't an on-the-field coach, but he's the one who worked with the special teams in practice. When you say on-the-field coach, it means the 10 you can have on the field and game day, that kind of thing. So just to clarify, all right.
And you could also go on the road.
Yeah, on the road. Yeah,
that's the important part. That's the important part is that you can, as a 10, one of the main 10, you can be out there traveling, recruiting, hitting the hallways and all that. And so that's why it's